Hello! You like westerns? You like Dungeon Crawler Carl? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to the reading vlog. There are 1,001 reasons to read Dungeon Crawler Carl, but I only need one reason, and her name is Princess Donut. Princess Donut is already my favorite animal companion in all of fiction, the best pet of all time. You could fight me. I will defend this point. Dungeon Crawler Carl is such an absurd book. It is so silly. It is so unserious. I'm super surprised that it's my cup of tea. I love gritty, grimdark fantasy. I love realistic, depressing science fiction. I love horror. I didn't think there was a place in my heart for silly fantasy, and I don't know why that surprises me so much because I'm a very silly, humorous individual. Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinniman is amazing. I'm halfway done with it. We'll be finishing it in the first half of this week. It's already changed my entire TBR for the latter half of this year. I'm reading a lot more books that are just so much fun to read, books that make me laugh, books that are silly, because when I'm having a good time when I'm reading, I read a lot more. And that is the point of this booktube channel. That is the point of me reading, to bring color and happiness and joy to my life. And we'll see what else I'm going to read this week. But we're for sure finishing up Dungeon Crawler Carl Book 1. Tuesday, 85% through Dungeon Crawler Carl. It's amazing. The audiobook presentation is absolutely astounding. I'm not sure what company's in charge of it, but I'm definitely going to be trying out other books, other series from this sound company because performance is the best audiobook performance I've ever encountered. It's almost better to listen to the audiobook than it is to read it, and I've never encountered a book quite like that. Why do I love Dungeon Crawler Carl? The premise is absurd. Earth has just been destroyed in an apocalyptic event. All the surviving humans and matter of Earth is put into an intergalactic maze that has 18 levels. The survivors of Earth are put into this maze, and they kind of got to be social media influencers to get followers, to get subscribers, to sponsor them, to help them survive through this maze. And as someone where content creation is a very important part of their job and their life and getting sponsors and support, I relate very strongly to that. Also, Carl is an everyman. He's just a normal dude, had a girlfriend. Maybe the girlfriend sucked. She had a pet. He played video games all day. He was in the military when he was younger. And he's forced into this chaotic, epic circumstance, and he has to perform. How do you not relate to him? When you add Princess Donut, a talking Persian kitten, or cat, rather, full grown cat, you have some pretty entertaining hijinks. I've reached an emotional low around the midway point of this book, and it completely surprised me. I had tears in my eyes in a story where there are acidic llamas that sell meth. There's absurd stuff, but the author was still able to give me those emotional lows, to give me those sad moments. That's very, very impressive. The second book I'm going to read this week is Butcher's Crossing. This book has been on my TBR ever since Man Carrion Thing has mentioned it. He's even made a full hour plus length video about this book and why he loves it and about why it's a masterpiece. Essentially, it's Moby Dick in the American West, but instead of hunting a whale, they're hunting buffalo. I've never read Moby Dick, but I've heard this is an amazing story of ambition and obsession, and it's a very manly story. The American West, just a bunch of men doing vigorous manual labor, hunting buffalo. I'm only 20 pages in, but I already feel tougher. I already feel more manly. Very different in tone to Dungeon Crawler Carl, but I like it. We'll see how these two reads mesh. Thursday night. How do you like the mutton chops mustache combo? I'm trying something out, I'm comfortable in my own skin, but not too comfortable to film a book review video. That was the plan for today, but I'm not sure I want this to be immortalized. We'll see how I feel about it tomorrow. I'm reading Butcher's Crossing, and I love it because it's just a story about becoming a man, about growing up. The premise is essentially a college-age student. He's done 3 years of college at Harvard, and he has an itch. He has a desire to go out west and to make a name for himself. So he goes to Butcher's Crossing, a small town, a town that's just a town that exists to be a staging point to hunt buffalo. because he wants to become a man. He knows there's something out there in the wilderness, and he knows the value and the happiness he has, he wants in his life, he can't get from school. So right away, I'm resonating with this story. It's very similar to my own. I had a very clear pathway that was laid out for me, and there was these steps that were very set in stone that I knew I had to accomplish that supposedly would bring value and happiness and success, and I didn't see value in it. And then I got into the UFC and I get to do that, and now I'm not sure I will ever see value in that more traditional life path. And when I say this book's about becoming a man, it doesn't mean like there's a lot of masculinity. It takes place like on a buffalo hunting trip. That's the story, that's the setting. But I feel like growing into a man, masculinity, femininity, it's not about fulfilling certain gender roles, but if you do find value in those, that's what it could mean for you. But becoming a man, becoming a woman, becoming a person is all about self-expression and self-actualization. I think what we all want more than anything is to look in the mirror and to like what we see looking back at us. And I think in terms of what we accomplish, I think we always want to be able to look back on what we've done in our life, what we've accomplished, and what goals we've achieved. And we want to be satisfied and happy and proud of those things. It's not like a guy-girl thing. It's not a masculine, feminine thing. It's just a person thing. We want to be happy with the life that we're living. And we want to look back on our life and be like, yeah, the effort I put into this, and that meant something. And that's what Butcher's Crossing is about. Very beautiful writing, very beautiful passages. The author described many thoughts and like trains of thoughts that I've had growing up. And I remember being a young man in my 20s and not knowing what I wanted in my life and not knowing where I planned on going, but knowing that I had a dream, knowing that there was like this innate restlessness and trying to, strive after those dreams and strive after those desires and strive after those obsessions. It's a very emotionally riveting read for me. I could see why Man Carrying Thing really liked it. Saturday. I don't think killing animals is manly. I grew up in a very animal respecting household. My stepfather's been a vegetarian for almost 30 years. I was a vegetarian for 5 years. My parents have a farm now. I grew up with like 40 animals in the house, taking care of them. So the whole concept of Butcher's Crossing, of men just going to this valley to hunt hundreds and thousands of buffalo just to sell their hides, and they waste the meat, and there's no like respect for the animals. It's just monotonous destruction and chaos on this ecosystem. I'm having trouble seeing the value in that. I understand that from a very traditional masculine standpoint. Yeah, men get dirty, men hunt things, men need to go on adventures. That's what men do. But I have trouble believing and like subscribing to that form of masculinity and finding value in that. Carl from Dungeon Crawler Carl, on the other hand, that's the type of man I would not mind being like. He is brave, he stands up for what he believes, and he protects his loved ones. He has a lovable feline sidekick. He respects animals. He's strong, he's loving. Very much a more modern example of masculinity. You just see the way our grandparents were with their families and with their social circles and with their job, and you see what my generation's like with their family and their friends. A lot more affectionate, a lot more emotional, a lot more open. And I think it's a healthier version of masculinity. Tomorrow I'm going to shave this off. 2 days was enough time to get a nice sample size of the reactions people have towards the facial hair. Women overwhelmingly hated it. Men overwhelmingly liked it, but you never know if dudes are just being supportive because they're dudes. If I was younger, Jordan, in my early 20s, trying to find a wife, trying to attract a mate, I would not get this facial hair. If I was driving an Uber and I saw a man with this facial hair, I would probably just skip over that passenger, miss out on that money. It's very sketchy. We keep our word to ourselves. That's discipline. We keep our word to others because it's justice. I'm reading this book, Right Thing, Right Now, by Ryan Holiday. He's a Stoic author and philosopher. I've read all of his books about Stoicism, and I've enjoyed them. I'm not feeling this one too much. I'm not going to talk too much about it because I noticed that whenever I mention nonfiction works, a lot of you guys stop watching. I've been studying the analytics of the channel. That is why I didn't state a virtue of the week, because a lot of people just leave when you mention the virtue of the week if it's not a virtue that they agree with. But yeah, I guess on the topic of manliness, because I was talking about that last night, I feel like a big part of manliness, a very important part of becoming an adult, of growing into your own person, of being proud of who you are, is keeping your word. Saying you're going to do something and then following through on it. I don't make a lot of promises, but the promises I do make, I keep. And I feel like people are too eager to make a promise, to say they're going to do something. And then when the going gets tough, they don't follow through. And that's one thing I'm really liking about Butcher's Crossing and Dungeon Crawler Carl. Carl keeps his word, and good things happen. Characters in Butcher's Crossing do not keep their word, and bad things happen. And I think that's just some cosmic justice right there. Sunday night. I'm cleanly shaved. It's 9 p.m. The final page count for this week is 531 pages. I finished 2 books, Butcher's Crossing and Dungeon Crawler Carl. Let's talk about them. Butcher's Crossing, a Western masterpiece. Very compelling dialogue, beautiful writing, great pacing. It's a little slow, but I liked it. Very realistic, gruesome depictions of animal violence, of hunting buffalo, a very manly read about manly characters. It's about loss of innocence. It's about nature, man versus nature. It was brutal. It was compelling. It was beautiful. At about the 85% mark, I was like, this is a masterpiece, but I hate it. Beautiful Western story, but I hate Westerns. The ending kind of saved it, but I'm not sure if I like this book. I'll have to give it some time. I'll have to give it some time to pickle in my brain because it was amazing, but I feel like I should be having a stronger reaction to it. I'll definitely be picking up some more works from John Williams. I heard he's only written 4 novels, all of which are considered masterpieces from in different genres. Very rare. I could see why Butcher's Crossing is mentioned almost 50 years after it's been published. Dungeon Crawler Carl, on the other hand, is a book, it is a series that may never be mentioned by critics and literary people 20 years from now. That being said, I absolutely loved it. It was a lit RPG about a man going through a maze with a cat sidekick that talks. There's magic missiles. There's D&D references. It read like a video game. The audible narration was absolutely astounding. You could kind of guess where the story was going, but there were still some surprises mixed in that I wasn't quite anticipating. There was all types of humor, great dialogue. Carl is an amazing protagonist. Donna is a great foil sidekick, fellow protagonist. I could see why Dungeon Crawler Carl has captured the hearts of many people over the last 4 years. I believe there's 6 or 7 installments, and I may be reading all of those installments before the end of the year. Definitely the most fun I've had in a first installment in some time, perhaps ever. Dungeon Crawler Carl versus Butcher's Crossing. It's very funny because one is objectively a better written story, but one's a lot more fun. And what's more important to you? Literary, like a higher level of literary greatness or a fun, engaging, compelling story? I'm looking for a good time. There's a lot of value to be found in serious literary works like Butcher's Crossing, but maybe I'm just not at that level. Maybe I'm just not at that stage of my life as a reader. But these are 2 very interesting books that didn't have too many themes in common, but strong male protagonists who are very masculine, who are trying to find themselves, trying to figure their lives out. Those are common threads in both of them. And that's like a theme, an archetype, like a plot thing that I really enjoy in my fiction. 2 great novels this week, 531 pages. I read a classic. I read something that's very hot and popular on BookTube right now. And I can't wait to talk more about those during the monthly wrap up. I'm probably going to get individual reviews for both of these works on the channel before the end of the month. I'm very happy with this week. A very stimulating reading week. I'm really loving progression fantasy. I'm really loving lit RPGs. Don't think I'm going to like Westerns too much. I don't think Westerns are my thing, but we'll see. You never know what the stories have in store for you until you pick them up. This week is pretty damn good. Next week will be even better. And thank you guys for watching, and I'll talk to you guys next time.